nobody even noticed that I picked Oklahoma to cover the spread. Like it was just completely covered up by Oklahoma fans' hatred of Ari, who basically said that Oklahoma is going to lose by 1,000.
Yeah, I picked the team that everyone expects to win by a lot to win by a lot.
Yeah,
super controversial stuff.
Yeah, I know, but Ari, you're a guy who, like, you understand all this Vegas stuff, and you follow point spreads and history, and like, do you actually know what the record of the favorite in this game is in the last 15 meetings?
Did you look that up? Because I'd like to know. Yeah,
I did look it up. Yes, I did. Okay. So, because I was wondering, because I've been to a couple of these, been to a few of these Red River games, and they've always seemed kind of weird. Like there's a weird energy in the stadium. It's very cool, 50-50 split. It's different, like, because I know this is an SEC game for the first time, so people are like, "Oh, it's just like Georgia and Florida playing in Jacksonville." It doesn't feel the same. Like when Florida and Georgia play in Jacksonville, usually the best team wins. Like 2014, when the Publix bag boy scored on the fake field goal and they saved Will Muschamp's job for 2 weeks. Like that was one of the ones where the best team didn't necessarily win, but usually the best team wins. In this game in Red River, it's wild. Okay, so last 15 meetings, the favorite is 6-8-1 against the spread. Now that doesn't mean they necessarily lost the game outright, but they've not covered 8 times. There was a push in 2009. Texas was a 3-point favorite and won by 3. So it is a strange game. And Oklahoma had a run of just couldn't cover the spread situations. Mm-hmm. So 2013 is the one I always come back to. That's Mac's last game in this rivalry as the Texas coach. And Oklahoma was a 14.5-point favorite. Texas won 36-20. It was like Oklahoma couldn't do anything in that game. It was wild. But there was a lot of that basically that entire stretch where Oklahoma was better than Texas, and Vegas thought them to be significantly better than Texas, but in this game couldn't really blow them out. So that's
when you look that up. When you look that up, did they show you the spreads of the games too, or just the record?
Yes, I have the spreads of all of them.
Okay, how many of them were 3 scores?
Let's see. 2014, Oklahoma was a 14.5-point favorite. Oklahoma won 31-26. 2013, Oklahoma was a 14.5-point favorite. Texas won 36-20. Not 3 scores, but 2016 was 13.5. Oklahoma was favored, and Oklahoma won by 5. 2015, Oklahoma was a 13.5-point favorite, and Texas won by 7. So,
yeah,
pretty much all of them. The favorite did not cover the spread. All of those big ones.
So let's go. Let's put up a big bag on this and go Texas on it. Go money line too. Listen, I know that the game is weird. I watch it on TV. This is going to be my first time going, but I've watched it on TV since I can remember every year because it's one of the coolest things in the sport. I know that things go off the rails. I just didn't pick for things to go off the rails. But if they do, I'm not going to be surprised. It's happened so frequently. But
I'm just glad that the Oklahoma fans are on you, because
I think that's what they're upset about, though.
They do not like when you insinuate they might lose a football game. They get very angry if you insinuate that their team might not win a particular football game. Like, I said all summer, watch out for that Tennessee game. And they're like, are you kidding? Don't you know we're Oklahoma? Don't you know we win every game? And I'm like, you win most games, but you don't win all of them. And maybe you won't win this one. And guess what? They didn't. I also said the Auburn game might be a problem. They won that game. It was a problem, but
we should come up with the thing that you think could go most haywire on Saturday. Like, would Jackson Arnold having to come into the game and leading Oklahoma to a win be the most haywire thing? Or maybe something with Arch Manning. But like, if this game,
an Arch Manning story would be the most haywire. So we're going to talk about all of this, and we can actually talk about it now. There's a ton of stuff to talk about today. We can put it in any order, but the most haywire thing, I think Oklahoma's defense, because this is where you said yesterday, this is another thing that pissed the Oklahoma fans off, is you made it sound like every position group at Texas is better than every position group at Oklahoma. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think it's true for most of the position groups, but Oklahoma's defense is pretty good at forcing turnovers. I am curious if Oklahoma's defense can force some early turnovers, create some short fields, maybe that causes this game to turn. Now, let me ask you this, Ari. I'm curious about this because we actually were set up to talk about this. You and I talked about this off air yesterday. We talked about how marvelously Steve Sarkisian has handled his quarterback situation in terms of making sure everybody knows Quinn Ewers is the starter. When Quinn Ewers is back healthy, he'll be the starter, and that'll be this week. And what if Danny Stutzman and the crew force some turnovers, like they force an interception or they're stripping Quinn Ewers?
Mm-hmm.
If you're Sark, what do you do on that?
Yeah, I think that the way that Steve Sarkisian has handled this quarterback situation has been, like you said yesterday, a masterclass in terms of not making it bigger than it is, maintaining who the starting quarterback is going to be, letting Arch Manning go out there, operate, maybe even starting him a game longer than he would have had he been nervous about people getting antsy about who the starting quarterback is. And like, we're not really questioning it. It's 3 weeks or 4 weeks after this happened. Arch Manning has played, 3 full games basically, and has looked really good in those games, and we're not questioning it. So the thing that I think Steve Sarkisian does, if he even thinks about putting Arch Manning in, is all of the goodwill and all of the work that he's done over the course of the past month in terms of, harboring this discussion and not making up controversy out of it goes out the window. The second you rely on Arch Manning to do something that Quinn Ewers can't do is the second you open the conversation for whether or not the starting quarterback of the team is correct, right? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it's like this, like Arch Manning was playing because the starting quarterback was unable to play physically.
Yeah.
But if you put Arch Manning into the game and the game is in question because the starting quarterback is failing, then you are basically saying to the world, I'm not sure who the best player is for the team right now. And then that is when things would go crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, we always go back to Herm Edwards here, but you play to win the games. And at that point, you have to do what you have to do to win the games. Tanner asked in the chat, handled it great. Everything seems pretty straightforward. Why does Sark deserve credit? Tanner, have you watched how other college football coaches handle quarterback situations? Like, watch what Mike Gundy's doing right now with Alan Bowman and Garrett Rangel. You may not find out until they kick off against BYU in, like, I'm bad at math, 12 days, 11 days, who actually is their starting quarterback at Oklahoma State right now. Like,
yeah,
it's the Cam Rising discourse. Like, Kyle Whittingham has okey-doked this on Cam Rising so many times at this point. Like, this is actually very refreshing because Sark's like, hey, Quinn's a starting quarterback. Arch has been great. Quinn's a starting quarterback. Now, I think a lot of that is because Arch's situation is unique. The Manning family understands this. He doesn't have a dad who's saying, if my kid doesn't start, we're going to shut this down in red shirt. Like, they don't have that situation. Like, they understand Arch only needs one good year as the starter at Texas, and he can go to the NFL and fulfill his destiny. Like, they don't have to put any pressure on anybody. And I think that's one thing that makes this different. But I will point out, Ari, and I think we've talked about this a little bit already. I think Brent Venables handled his quarterback situation about as well as he could have as well. Because in the Tennessee game, he brings in Michael Hawkins to replace Jackson Arnold. Very quickly, the following Monday of the Auburn week, he's like, Michael Hawkins is the guy. He's starting. He didn't stretch it out. He didn't make... it's not even the external thing where he told all of us. It's more the internal thing where they made it very clear quickly and didn't draw that out either, so that everybody kind of knew where they stood.
Yeah. And the second you make a decision that is contradictory to the actions and behavior and words that you use is when things go off the rails. So if there is a scenario where Oklahoma is failing on offense on Saturday and they go to Jackson Arnold, then it's a discussion point every single day until there's a starter named again. So I don't know that that's going to happen, but you like to point out that this game goes crazy. I think that him coming into the game, Arnold that is, would be a crazy, unforeseen twist in a game that always seems to, illustrate those.
Well, and that's the thing. It's interesting because in the last, 20 years or so, there's only been one situation where you had a quarterback come in. You'd think it would actually happen a little more often, but it was Caleb Williams coming in for Spencer Rattler in 2021, right?
And that was pretty obvious move to make now in hindsight, looking back at it, like, yeah, of course he came in.
Guys, you see the little dog on the shoulder. Rowback, the most comfortable hoodies, Q-zips, polos, shorts, joggers, long sleeve crews. This is the long sleeve crew. This is the best fitting shirt I own. The new joggers, by the way, the buttery soft material on those, it's like heaven on your legs. You know how I feel about Rowback. You know how amazing it is. You know the hoodies, most comfortable clothing in my collection, stolen by my daughter over and over again. If you order a performance hoodie, you may as well order two because someone in your house is stealing it. Go to rowback.com, RHOBACK. Use the code Andy. Get 20% off your first order. Hoodies, polos, Q-zips, pants, shorts, the long sleeve crew, you name it. It's there at Rowback for you. RHOBACK.com. Use the code Andy, 20% off your first purchase. Yeah, I mean, that was a crazy game. That was, Xavier Worthy on the first play of the game goes deep as a true freshman, and in his first play in the Red River game. Like, you think about all the talent that was on the field that day, it was pretty fun. But this is going to be a fun game, and as history says, it does tend to go off the rails. It does at least tend to not go by what Vegas necessarily thinks is going to happen, which I think is what makes it so much fun. I also love that Oklahoma fans just despise Ari. It goes back to a tweet that you've since disavowed anyway, but you said basically that Michael Hawkins couldn't throw, which not true. I think what the Oklahoma fans don't understand, but I understand because I know you, is this is just a case of five-star brain. Like, you're just like, oh, he's the four-star quarterback. He can't possibly be as good as the five-star quarterback. But as we all know, it's not like five-star safeties, which are a pretty high hit rate. Five-star quarterbacks are still like a 50-50 proposition.
I think that what I do, and Ralph Russo, who listens to our show at The Athletic, will be the first person to tell you is that a lot of times when I am thinking something or I'm in the moment, like, I will use harsh language. It's something that actually happens in my marriage too, of just like when I am having a discussion or an argument or a thought, like, I don't sugarcoat it. I don't like to say soft things, but sometimes I say harsh things that are too harsh. And saying he can't throw was not the right thing to say. But the thing that irritates me about the entire discourse of it is that tweet went completely unnoticed for 2 hours until after he threw the single pass of the game that you've shown me and they show me over and over and over again. And then we dismiss the entire game as if Oklahoma was throwing the ball. I tweeted it at a time where they couldn't get a first down, and every single throw that the man attempted to make was an incomplete pass. Some were missed targets. No one was open. I understand the offensive line stinks. I also understand that their receiving core. But if it turns out that he is not a really good passer, and by that I mean right now because he's young.
Ari, who has a higher completion percentage this year?
No, I understand.
Michael Hawkins or Jackson Arnold?
Yeah.
Who has a higher completion percentage?
Yeah, Michael Hawkins.
So who's better at throwing the ball?
I also think he's thrown the ball half as much though, too, right? I've got to look up the numbers, but
Yeah,
percentage.
actually a third as much, but he's actually way more efficient at it.
Okay, so I'm just saying, like, stats are
3 yards
pretty
per attempt more. That's
did you watch the Auburn game, and did you think that was a very proficient game passing? Did you think that you saw that? You're like, I see a great passing situation here. Is that what you saw?
I'm gonna look at the numbers. Ari, I saw a quarterback average 10.7 yards per pass attempt. Do you know what 10.7 yards per pass attempt can get you in some cases?
What are you saying? I don't know.
It can get you the Heisman Trophy. I mean, like 10.7 yards per pass attempt is extremely efficient.
And how many?
It's a very good day passing the ball. What?
I'm saying after he threw that pick, or not that pick, that long touchdown, which is a tremendous throw and a game-winning play. I'm not diminishing it, but
he was 10 of 15. You're telling me he had a bad day passing the ball when he was 10 of 15 for 161 yards. That is an incredibly efficient day throwing the football. That is incredibly good.
All right. If you saw,
that's what you want,
and you saw a really good passing situation, then I was wrong. But I didn't see that when I was watching the game. And you can use
10.7 yards per attempt. Every coach will take that.
How long was the touchdown throw?
It wasn't a touchdown. It was like 65 yards though.
Okay, so that was 40% of his entire passing output on the day.
10.7 per attempt. Shall we look at the national leaders in yards per attempt? Jackson Dart is leading the country at 12.1. There's actually only 5 that average 10.7 or more. Now, Michael Hawkins Jr. has not attempted enough passes to get onto this list.
Really?
So we'll see. It's a small sample size, but you're telling me it was a bad performance, and I'm telling you it wasn't because the numbers tell us it wasn't.
I'm not saying
now perhaps it was an anomaly, but the data we have is pretty good. So let me name you the quarterbacks who averaged 10.7 or more yards per attempt. Drew Aller, Curtis Rourke, the Maple Missile, Arch Manning, Jalen Milroe,
Maple Missile,
and Jackson Dart. That's the list.
Okay, well, you feel pretty good. Like, listen, if the guy comes out and throws for 10.7 yards an attempt and they're moving the football through the air, then I was wrong. But I don't know. The thing that I feel like is happening here is I have a thought in the second quarter or the early third quarter of a game. That thought was largely appropriate given nobody reacted to it for 2 hours.
Because I have a general rule of thumb that
and then 3 hours later or 2 hours later, when he makes the lone big play of the game, then all of a sudden we circle back to the thing that you probably agreed with at the time, and then I'm an asshole for it. And I can't stand that.
Ari, I have a rule. Never tweet in the first quarter. Probably never tweet in the second quarter or the third quarter either.
I think it was like the late second quarter where Oklahoma was not moving the football at all. And obviously that changes, right? Because a team gets better. But yeah. I would have preferred to tweet something when I tweet something. And if it is crazy when I tweet it, get the reaction immediately. I don't like revisionist
it's
history
in writing, dude. It doesn't go away. So when the circumstances change
at the time, and then it becomes wrong, or somebody does something that they weren't doing later.
That's why you don't tweet in the second quarter. That's why you don't do it.
I love tweeting. But you know what? Listen. The one thing I have to say, and they are right about, is that you can't say things like can't throw, right? Because that is a blanket statement that the man is unable to do it. And for somebody who was as young in his career and threw as well as he did in high school, that was an unfair thing to say. So that is, that's what I think. That said, I don't feel particularly bad about the premise that I was making, which is they moved on from a quarterback that was supposed to be the future after 3 starts, and yes, very poor starts, to go to a person who through the first half of the Auburn game was struggling to get a first down, which is when I wrote it. Things got marginally better in the second half, And Oklahoma was fortunate enough that Auburn threw a touchdown pass to their defense.
Sooner Magic says, I'm the guy on Twitter who insults Ari. I'm sorry for upsetting you yesterday. I'll try to say nicer things to you. See,
I appreciate you being here, but and thanks for actually coming in and listening to the show. And like the thing that bothers me too, Andy, is I don't even sit here in this chair and pretend like I'm always right. I'm a human. I make mistakes. I say things I shouldn't say. And it's like not coming from a hateful place. You know what I mean? And like I am super excited to watch the Texas game. I don't think I'm crazy for thinking that that Texas is going to win the game. I believe that Texas is one of the 3 teams in college football that has the best chance to win the national title, and Oklahoma is going through some shit right now. I don't think it's that crazy to think. But, you know, the way that people treat people when they're wrong or if they say something that's wrong is just infuriating to me, especially considering the fact that the circumstances of the tweet are misrepresented 2 weeks later as if that's what I said after the game was over, or that what I said at the time wasn't correct. That's all.
Yeah. People are mean online. Just get used to it.
All my takes are anti-OU.
Producer Rivers doing some math on us. If that bomb falls incomplete at Auburn, his stat line would have been 9 of 15 for 101 yards, 6.7 yards per attempt. But see,
really?
That's why yeah. But you know what? It was a perfect throw.
It was a perfect throw. It was a perfect throw. It was complete, and he gets those as part of his stats. That said, that was the lone play of the entire game of Hawkins as a passer. That was a amazing play or a proficiently.
And guess what? Ari, 6.7 yards per attempt would still be better than Jackson Arnold on this season.
Yeah. And Jackson Arnold has been bad. So maybe part of the reason why people have, a hard time with me thinking this is that I am too attached to what Jackson Arnold was supposed to be.
5-star brain.
Which I could own up to. And not just because of the rating, but because of what was sold to us from people in the program.
Here's the other part I love is when they get mad at us at On3. It's like, you guys didn't rate the guy correctly. You had him rated too low. And they're like, you guys had Hawkins as a 3-star. We actually did not. We had Michael Hawkins as a 4-star. It was one of those other companies that had him as a 3-star. So if you can't remember who you're actually mad at, maybe don't paint with a broad brush.
Hey, Andy, can I ask you just a general question too?
Yeah, sure.
Because like Sooner Magic here, who was nice enough to come listen to the show and post.
And Sooner Magic listens every day.
I'm happy he's here. But just between you and me, just us girls here, is Oklahoma having a good season?
At the moment, they're having an okay season. If they beat Texas, I will say they are overachieving.
But would you say that so far, with the way that things happen at Tennessee and the way that the game looked for the majority of the Auburn game, that they are
having the season I expected them to have right now?
It's not a good season for Oklahoma standards. Can we say that? So far,
I can tell you definitively after the Texas game whether it's going to feel like a good season.
Andy, so far this season, is Oklahoma having a good season? It can change. I'll let Sooner
Magic answer the question.
Okay,
Sooner Magic in the chat says we are sucking ass, not happy about it.
Thank you, Sooner Magic. So when I am negative about the team, it's not okay, right? Because I'm a hater and all my takes are anti-OU and whatever. But when you say it, it's okay because you're an Oklahoma fan. And that's the thing that
are you new to this?
No, I know, but it's like because I didn't go to OU or because I'm not an Oklahoma fan, if I say the thing that you think, I'm a hater, but you think it too, and it's so when does it become an observation?
Ari, nobody is more critical of their own team than the fans of that team.
But why are they upset when other people are critical of it? It's
like with my kids. It's like with my kids. Okay, my son will say all sorts of terrible things about his sister over and over and over again. But if somebody at school says something bad about her, they're going to have a problem with him because she's family. You can say whatever you want about family, but somebody outside the family can't say anything about your family. Same thing, same concept.